Hello, you're welcome back to my channel. So if you've been seeing this bare skin effect on dresses, this is what this video is about. So I'll be plotting the basic bodice block first. So I'll get about 3 inches from the top of my paper and I'll roll a line. That will be for my shoulder line. And then I'll divide the paper into two, because it's not like normal basic bodies that will fold, that we plot on fold. This one is a flat basic body, so we'll get a midpoint and then we'll divide our measurements and place whatever we have on both sides of the line. Okay, so now I'll get the midpoint all the way to where I want my line to stop, and the midpoint here is 12 inches. So marking 12 inches to where the length of the blouse will stop, or you can make it to the end of the paper, it doesn't matter. So I'll rule a line. I'll be marking the vertical dimensions first of my bust point, the under bust, the half length. Now when I'm working with a blouse like this, I work with the back half length. So I'll be marking that on this paper and then we'll mark the blouse length. The blouse length I use 25 inches. I'll rule these lines, okay, at the point that we marked. So I'll draw these lines to be our indicators, to mark the lines. And then I'll go back to the shoulder line and I'll place a half of my shoulder measurement on both sides of this grid line, that midline that we marked. So if half of my shoulder measurement is 8 inches, I'll be marking 8 inches on both sides. At that point, I'll go down with 1 inch. That will be for my shoulder slope. But before I slant my shoulder, I'm marking 3 inches on both sides of the grid line. And the 3 inches I marked upward there, I left upward there. I'm just ruling a vertical line, and then you can leave it straight because it doesn't really matter. It's not like we are really using it, or you can just make it slant. Okay, so in this case I'm making it slant and I'll cancel the first line that I drew. So at this point now I can slant the shoulder to meet my neck width. From my shoulder slope, I'm taking half of my shoulder measurement, getting the midpoint of that so we can create our arm curve. I'll then connect the line and mark the chest line. So I'm doing the same thing on the other side. So now at that midpoint I marked on the vertical line from my shoulder slope to the chest line, I'm going inwards with half inch. Okay. And before I do the arm curve, I will mark my bust measurement. The bust measurement here is divided by 2. So I have a tutorial on that on my channel. So I'll link it in the description box below so you check it out. So I'm dividing my bust measurement by 2, and then what I have, I'm marking it on both sides of the grid line, and then I will form my arm curve. Okay, so now the bust measurement I'm using is bust circumference divided by 2 plus 1.5. So I'm adding 1.5 to the bust measurement in front. And whatever I have there, I will divide by 2 and place it on both sides of this grid line. So now moving to the bust point, the under bust, the half length, and the blouse length. Okay, I'm dividing the bust measurement by 2 as well. Okay, I'm adding half inch to whatever I have. Okay, So now, because of the tummy in front, the waist and even the underbust has addition of half inch, and that half inch will subtract it from the back waistline. Okay, so the same formula applies to the underbust and the waist. So the bust measurement is, the formula is your underbust circumference or waist circumference divided by 2 plus 0.5. Okay, so now on the hip line there, I'm just marking the hip divided by 4 for now. Now remember, this is a flat block. Okay, so I won't be able to do that hip allocation on this. So for now, I'll just mark the 1/4 of my hip circumference on both sides of the grid line. And when I'm done with this, I will simply connect the dot and then I'll cut it out. So far, if this video gives you any value, please give me a like, comment and share. And if you're a new subscriber, thanks for stopping by, and consider being part of us, part of this family. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here. Okay, so now we are done marking that and we're cutting this out. I will place this on a fresh paper for the back bodice. Usually my back bodice is 1 inch higher at the shoulder line and half inch wider, but I'll ignore the 1 inch higher at shoulder line in this one, and I'm just marking that midpoint on my arm curve because I'll need to make it half inch wider at the shoulder. Now this half inch wider gives a ease, so you can move your arms freely, and it gives you some comfort around that region. So I'll use the curve part of my pattern master and curve this part out, okay, to meet the shoulder line, and that's it for the back bodice. So for now, we'll just cut exactly what we have on the front bodice on this fresh paper, okay, except for the arm curve. So we'll cut the same thing out, and this is the back. That's the midpoint I've created and the chest line. So I'll bring in the front bodice at this point and mark the half length. So we'll have the same thing on the back bodice. So I'm marking the half length now, and I will draw a line on this back bodice. I'll draw a line on this back bodice at where we have the half length. Okay, so now for the bust measurement, we added 1.5 inches to the front bodice. So for the back bodice, we'll subtract that 1.5 inches. Okay, so subtracting that 1.5, we're making it on both sides of the grid line. So at the waist there, there's no tummy at the back. So we'll subtract half inch. I'm just making the formula simple at this, but I'll leave the formula on the screen. Okay, so we'll subtract half inch at the waist there and then connect that line. And for the hip line, because we have the butt at the back, I'll leave it exactly the way it is, but I'll subtract 1.5 from the front bodice later. So when I'm done with this contouring, I'm just cutting this out. Going back to the front block, like I said, I'm subtracting 1.5 inches, and that will be on both sides of the grid line. And I'll connect from the waistline to that new dot, okay, and cut it out. So when I'm done with that, I will now place this on a cardboard. Now this is what I have. If you have, at this point, if you're making it with cartons, it will be a lot better. But this is a DIY and I just had to make do with what I have. So you will use this gum, it's a paper gum called Bone, and this brush, and then you spread all the gum on this white paper, okay? Now, if you're using a carton, you'll do the same thing, just that you will not be using a cardboard. So you just spread the gum, and when you're done spreading it like so, you place it on your carton. But since I'm using, a cardboard here, so that's what I'm using. When you're done placing it, you just cut out exactly what you have on that paper, and that's it. Now, if you're using a carton, you can, double it or make it three or four. It just depends on what you want. And when I'm done with that, I will use this sellotape, and just, it's a kind of protective shield for the white paper. So I will not mess it up with gum or whatever. So in case I want to use it again, so I'll just protect it with this sellotape. I'm just gonna gum it all over the paper. And what you're doing to the front bodies, you do exactly the same thing to the back bodies. Okay, so now I'm marking a half inch from the grid line there. I'll mark half inch on both sides of it on the chest line. And on my underbust, I'm marking my nipple to nipple distance. And I'll connect that half inch I marked on my chest line to cuff it. I'll cuff it and make it meet my underbust, the nipple distance. And then just like you're creating a corset, so I'm creating it like this. This is just a guide, but I'll be using ready-made cups for this. So that's how I'll place them. So for the ready-made cups, we'll be using underwire. And before I use that, I'll use a bias. I'm using an orange bias here so you can see properly. So I'll use a white bias and then sew it all round. Turn it inside out like a casing. And that's where I'll pass the underwire through. So when I'm done sewing it, you'll be doing it to the two cups. Okay. When I'm done sewing, that's the casing. So I'll bring my underwire and then pass it through, that casing. And you'll do the same thing to the wire and secure it at the top so it won't come out. So when you're done with that, you place this on the paper, on the cups again. So I'll be using this skin tone lycra. With that, you need to cover the cup with this lycra. Okay. Now, at this point, some people use only net for this, okay? But because I didn't want it so revealing, I'll be using this lycra like an inner. But for the best skin effect, you're to use a very stretchy fabric. So you can use a lycra, you can use a tulle, and your tulle has to be the stretchy one. Okay. So now I'm using this lycra to cover the bra cup, and you have to make it smooth. It shouldn't, have wrinkles or shrink in any form. So you make it smooth and then you trim the excess out. And that's what you will have. So doing it to the two cups, I'll just place it like so. And to secure this, I'll use a sellotape to just put the cups in the same spot. Okay. So at this point, because we'll be doing a lot of gummy here, I'll need to use I'm using a cotton wool here. You can use a vibra. You can use your pieces, pieces of fabrics to just fill this in. You don't have to make it too thick. Don't make the cup to stand. Just to give it some stability so that when you're gumming it, you'll not press the cup down. So I'm filling with this cotton wool just to fill up the space in between. And then I'll bring in the lycra first. Now the lycra will be like, the satin that you will use under a lace. So for me, I'm using this lycra. Now, if you're getting a lycra, I couldn't get my skin tone, and because this is for a tutorial, I just had to use this. But if you're making for a client or someone else, you need to get the skin tone of that person, because the idea is for you to look like you don't have anything under, like it's just your skin. But of course, you have, your body is not showing. You have the appliques on the lycra. Now, there are some people that want just the tulle net, and those ones are daring. They don't mind if their body, and if it's revealing. But if you don't want to show any part of your skin, you go for lycra. Okay, but make it your skin tone. So you're going to spread this lycra on the front bodice, and then you spread it, stretch it very well, and make it very smooth. And when I'm done with that, I'll bring in the tulle, my net part, and then spread it as well. So I'll be spreading the two of them together. I'll stretching them together, not too much, okay, but you just stretch it well enough for it to be smooth. Okay, so now at the under bust there, I'll just use a gum to just pin it down, to give it a kind of structure. So I'll be using this gum B6000 and just gum it under, the under bust there. And I'll do it on both sides of the cup. Just use a cotton wool or a piece of fabric, and gum it down. Gum it down and make it firm. Okay, so now if you don't want that midpoint to be so inward like that, you can just leave it to be overboard. But I just wanted the cup to be more defined. And I'm trimming this out, the excess. At the neckline there, I'm going downward with about 2 inches. Now, you can make it 3 inches. It depends on the neckline that you want. But I decided to go for the high neck for now. So I'll trim out the excess, and then I'll stretch the net again and make it smooth. Okay. So now these are the appliques I got from a lace. Okay. Now they are ready-made appliques in the market if you want to get those ones. But I decided to make do with the ones I could carve out from the lace I had. So this is just example of what you can create. So for the back bodies, I'm going to place the lycra first, just like I did to the front bodies. I'll make them 2 halves, on each side of the back bodies like so, because we'll be inserting a zipper. Now, I advise that you use an invisible zip, because of course the fabrics you're dealing with here, they are very light. So trimming out the excess that I have here, I'll just follow the contour of the back bodies. I place the net as well, and then trim out the excess. And the back bodies here doesn't really need much stretching, because already it's flat and you don't need any kind of contouring here. So it's a lot easier on the back body. So I'll just stretch out the net and the lycra. Pin them down. and I will have to divide the net, in the middle, so they will be apart. So just like you sew your satin to lace, that's how you will sew this net and the lycra together. And then I'll insert the zipper. So far, this is what we have for the back bodies. I've, placed those appliques, and you can do well to just tack them. Okay, after gumming them, you tack them. Same with the front bodies, you gum them, tack them before you can now remove them from the paper. Now, from all the pins that you pin down, you remove them, and of course, get out the cotton wool that you used under the bracket. Okay, at this point, you will now sew the back to the front bodies. Okay, you join the shoulder and the side seam. Okay, so for when we were drafting, I didn't add any seam allowance because this is a stretchy fabric, so you don't really need seaming allowance if you don't want it to baggy. Okay, so I didn't have to add any seam allowance. So I'll just join the back bodies to the front bodies at the shoulder and take out side seam. You can make it half inch or 1 inch, depends on what you want. But I used 1 inch for my side seams here, and it's still, fitted. So these are the sleeves. I made them from the tulle net alone, and I added the appliques, and this what I have. So if it has any value to you at all, give me a thumbs up, like, and share. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.